Hello, my homesteading family. Okay, so I had heard your request about wanting to make homemade ketchup. First, I want to thank each and every one of you. I had the opportunity to speak with so many. You humbled my heart in such a way, and some of you brought tears to my eyes in a joyful way to know that what I'm doing can help you. When I started this, realized that I am a different type of homestead. Out of my comfortability, I stepped out to being able to share what most homesteaders don't. It's not easily found that we live a low-carb Mediterranean lifestyle. And I will say this, in a lot of learning that I did for diabetes, there is just a single word called keto. Mind you, we are not the extremely low keto type homesteaders. We're not less than 20 grams a day. Our grams for a diabetic is safe between 50 to 80, no more than 100. We rarely ever even reach that. To be the 50 to 80 allows us fruits, vegetables, sweets, all this stuff. And we find a way that keeps my husband's sugar below 120 most of the time, even in the 90s. When we started this, he was at an A1C of 9.7. Today, 6 months later, he is at A1C 5.4. His doctor reduced his metformin from 2 times a day down to 1. And we go back in March, and we were told that if we continue on this path, allowing this diet to work for him without medication, he is willing to take him completely off of it, reversing the facts of having diabetes but without the medication, allowing our diet to take care of everything. So this was exciting. I know many of you requested the recipe for homemade ketchup, and I'm going to give you a brief history on why I even started making my own. Again, being a homesteader, homemade means a lot to me. I get natural flavors. I get natural vitamins, minerals, nutrients, more than what we can find in a store commercially. But there was something even greater that really burned my biscuits. And yes, I use that term. I am a Southern gal from Mississippi. So this seriously burned my biscuits, not just for me, but for every one of you. It makes no sense to me, and here is how I'm going to explain this. To be able to get in the price difference, now I understand we're living in a world of difference right now, but it still doesn't make any sense. For us to get a 13-ounce bottle of Heinz, only 13 ounces of Heinz, no added sugar, ketchup, is $3.18. But for an ordinary person, they can get a 24-ounce bottle of great value ketchup for $1.18. What's the difference? So I decided to go and do my research to find what is the difference, why it costs so much for us to have to pay more from somebody with a regular diet who don't have to worry about this. I was disturbed. The ingredients on a regular, great value, ordinary person's ketchup is tomato concentrate. Basically, tomato paste. High fructose corn syrup, you're getting sugar twice, distilled vinegar, salt, less than 2% of spices, onion powder, and natural flavors. Okay? The carbs in this was 5 grams of carbs for 1 tablespoon. Mind you, carbs, break down simple thing, carbs is sugar. This is what I have learned. Carb is nothing but a sugar. It will go straight to your bloodstream just like sugar does. And then there was also 4 grams of sugar, which technically in tomatoes they have their own natural sugars. And then 3 grams added sugar. Technically, in this form, you're getting 8 grams of sugar in 1 tablespoon of ketchup. Okay, I can understand that. But here was the difference that I don't understand. Here is the ingredients in the ketchup we have to use. Tomato concentrate from red vine ripe tomatoes. Again, tomato paste, distilled white vinegar, salt, natural flavoring, onion powder, spice, and an asterisk, sucralose. Explanation: not normally found in ketchup. The only difference between normal everyday ketchup and our ketchup is that instead of corn syrup, they're using sucralose in our food. Honestly, I don't get it, because we can get, now we could have back then got it cheaper, but you know how things are today. 19.4 ounce bag of sucralose is $7.94. A 9.7 ounce bag is $4.67. Do you know how much ketchup you can make with that? It makes no sense. And yet we are paying $1.90 difference because our ketchup doesn't have corn syrup. I don't get it. That's not fair to us. So I'm going to teach you how to make your own. The recipe that I'm going to use, I will link in the description box for you. This makes about 12 ounces because I made it prior before. The reason I did that, before I present you a recipe, being a self-taught chef and a homesteader, I believe in flavor. I believe in trying to be able to have the food as normal as we possibly can in the world that we have this new friend within ourselves, in our homes, and on our homesteads called diabetes. I believe in flavor, and I'm going to tell you, in this world that they call keto, some of this food, and I mean no disrespect to anybody, please understand that, but some of this food, I just can't get past that flavor, that texture, that it just, oh Lord have mercy. I am one who believes in flavor, and I do believe, and I have found, and in videos to come, I have so much to offer you. I couldn't do it all in one day because you couldn't sit long enough through my videos to get this information. To be able to have as normal life as possible, when you go to a barbecue, you can bring your own and feel just as nothing in your world has changed. That's my goal. You're going to make me cry in a minute. I care and love about you all just as I love my husband. There is no sense that any of this has to change to make you feel different from anybody else, because you're not. You just have something new. Whether we like it or not, we have to embrace it, but we can be the boss. Now, my husband is type 2 diabetic. When he started this, his A1C was 9.7. With everything that I learned, I had helped him within 6 months take his 9.7 A1C and drop it down to 5.4. Using the low-carb Mediterranean lifestyle and still be able to have flavor in our food that felt like, he told me, I don't feel any different. Thank you. His doctors went from 2 pills of metformin a day, cut it down to 1, and stated that in March, which is 6 months after his appointment, if he continues down this path and we normalize his blood sugar by diet alone, because metformin really isn't doing anything for him. This is by diet alone. He can be completely off his meds, relying on this diet. And that was reversing it. And it is very well possible. However, in type 1, those who want insulin, I can't express enough that there is no technically reversing this, but in a sense of it, it might be able to help the fact that you might not need as much. Now, I'm no physician by far. It may and may not help you. And so If you get something out of this and you find that this works for you and it helps you drop your insulin amounts, hallelujah, thank you, Jesus. I can do what I can, teach you what I know. Again, not everybody's the same. Every diabetic is different. Everybody has a great level. What they can have, what somebody else can't have. I can only teach you what is working for my husband, who is so sensitive to carbs, it's scary. But God blessed me with the ability to do this for him. I chose to take this journey with him because I wanted to support him. Little did I know the benefit it did greater for me as well. I started out as 211 pounds on the verge of pre-diabetes. I am now 170 and I don't plan on looking back. It has blessed me to ride this with him. He went from 243 to 194. So we have done this slowly in the low carb, not the range that I spoke of, 50 to 80 grams. That's a lot of carbs, folks, and still in a day. So with this, I'm not going to ramble on. Let's go make your ketchup, because I believe none of us should have to pay these prices for something so simple to make that you probably have most of this in your pantry right now. So let's go to the kitchen. Okay, we're going to start with the base of our ketchup, and that would be, well, like in the ingredients, our tomato paste. Now, I'm going to show you something first. The one I'm using in this recipe was actually my homemade tomato paste from my own tomatoes in my garden. But if you're not fortunate at this time, and during the spring and summer when we do our canning, I will show you how to make your own so that you can have your stocks for next year. But right now, for many of you, you're just now learning about me and we're just starting this. So tomato paste is, shop for your best prices, because tomato paste in itself, yes, it has sugar, but mind you, these are natural sugars. So I went and I got a can of Great Value tomato paste, and that's what I made this first round with. Also, the recipe calls for 2 types of vinegar that you can use. This one is made with white wine vinegar, and the other option was apple cider vinegar. Apple cider vinegar has more intense flavor than the white wine. It is a milder vinegar. So I made that with this to compare the flavors with you, to share what I found was better. And everybody's taste difference or preferences are different, so I get that. So you can do either way. I did both, and I could still put these in my fridge. So this was the ketchup, y'all, and honestly, it's amazing. You can make this thinner. This was a good consistency for ketchup for me. The flavor is phenomenal. It absolutely is phenomenal. The spices that I used, honestly, I used from my own gardening. In my pantry challenge, or not challenge, but tour that I gave you, I showed you that I make my own onion powder, my own garlic powder, using my own natural flavors from my own garden or from fresh ingredients, enhances flavors to a way no commercial can ever touch. So with this, we are going to today, this made an 8-ounce jar of tomato paste that I canned. I had some left over from my first example with you. So I had to add a touch more because you need a good scale. In a lot of the low carb, I'm going to tell you, scales are more accurate than cups. So with this recipe, it was actually half and half. The tomato base, the tomato paste base for the ketchup, was scaled at 240 grams. They say equals to about a cup. That's give or take. So I go by grams. Now this was 240 grams of tomato paste. Again, shop your own. Mine was a little darker. I used a variety of different tomatoes from my smoky purple Cherokees to Be Better Boys. I used a variety of tomatoes, so your consistency and color will change based by the tomatoes you use. So there was our tomatoes. That is the base. Our next would be our vinegar. This one here, again, I've tried the two. This one was made with the white wine vinegar, which was the milder vinegar, but this one here is going to be made with apple cider vinegar, and it called for 1/4 cup or 60 milliliters. That's what I scaled this on, was 60 milliliters. So we went with this. And folks, I'm going to tell you at this point, if this video ends up flipping, I am sorry, because I just realized you may have to look at this sideways. I am still very new to the world of technology. I have a simple phone. I don't have special equipment. So I apologize for the rawness of these videos, and I'm so sorry. The next ingredient is a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. Again, this is my own onion powder from fresh onions that I dehydrated. So we're going to add our 1/2 teaspoon. We have a 1/4 teaspoon of my all-natural garlic powder. Now, the recipe does say that you can use fresh ingredients like onions and fresh garlic, but this to me is going to take less time to do, because you are actually going to have to emulsify your ketchup, otherwise adding more time. Doing it by powders is simple. Within 5 to 10 minutes you're done. You don't have to do all that extra stuff. The next one is 1/8 of a teaspoon of allspice, 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground clove, here was another one. Okay, so salt. Go based by your preference. Now, the recipe stated to use 1 teaspoon of salt. I used approximately maybe 3/4 of a teaspoon. I start out with 1/2 and go from there to get where I want to be. I don't want it super salty, so I start out with less and I can always add it later. So I'm starting out with 1/2 teaspoon of salt. A 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. Now I'm going to tell you, this became a bit spicy. Not in a bad way, but I'm going to go less on the pepper this time to about 1/4, and I can always add later. And then the other 2 ingredients, one is the 2 tablespoons of sugar, which at this point I am not going to add. I will add this as the flavors heat up and get blended. If I find that this needs sugar, I will add it a little at a time. I wouldn't actually dump the 2 tablespoons. I'm going to go by taste, because again, tomato paste or tomatoes have their own natural sugar, and 95% of the time you don't even need to add it. The other will be water. Now, water would be due to thinning out the consistency to make it a ketchup, because using tomato paste can make it super thick. Difference between store-bought and mine, again, I would have to see the consistency of the liquid, which I'm going to stir right now. The consistency can change versus homemade to store-bought. So I'm going to stir this up and see where we stand. And yes, this is quite thick. So it calls for 2 to 4 tablespoons of water. Now, the store-bought tomato paste, honestly, to get the consistency that I like for a ketchup, I use 6 tablespoons. So go, again, based by your own preference. Now we're going to take this. I'm going to go ahead for right now, and I'm going to add a tablespoon of water. Maybe 2 right now. and leave it at this until I heat it up. And see where this goes. Yeah, we're going to end up adding more. You're going to find, though, as you add this water, you're going to get this silky look. You see how silky that is? It's looking so much like ketchup. And again, we will taste this with you, so not every tomato paste is the same from homemade to commercial. So now let's come over here and we're going to heat this up. I am going to set this on a simmer. Again, please forgive the flip-flopping of this, y'all. I still have so much to learn. So I'm hoping this don't disturb you. I'm kind of upset with myself for this, but we'll get through this. So now right now we're just going to heat this up on a low simmer. And I am going to come back with you as soon as this heats up. We're going to find out the consistency, how much more water we need, and I shall be right back. Okay, so we're still heating this, but I'm going to explain some of the adjustments that I did versus what I did the first time around. You remember I told you that the apple cider vinegar has more of a stronger vinegar flavor than the white wine because it is milder. I did find flavor is absolutely there, but the apple cider vinegar did dominate a bit over the tomato flavoring, and so I don't believe a ketchup should be over sugared, especially when you have your own natural tomato sugar. So in this recipe, on this one that I'm doing with you, I added a half a teaspoon of the Lacto monk fruit sweetener, the classic brand. This one actually right here. I only added a half a teaspoon. That's all it needed just to kick down that powering vinegar flavored. I didn't need 2 tablespoons. I don't believe in over sugaring a product. And I gotta show you this, y'all. This is heating up, and the reason we heat it is we just marry the flavors in your ketchup. Look at this. This is a really good consistency to me for a ketchup. You don't want it too thin. You don't want it too thick. When you squeeze this out of a bottle, that's going to look so good and taste so amazing. Again, go based by your own preferences from your salt and your sugars. I may have a different flavor balance than you do. I just found that I didn't need too much more. This recipe I'm doing with you versus my first, the store-bought was a lot thicker than my homemade, so I did end up using 4 tablespoons of water in mine versus the 6 tablespoons from the commercial tomato paste. Mine does have a bit more sugary flavor than the commercial brand, so I really didn't need a whole lot of sugar in it. And again, the only reason I added it was to bring down the flavoring of the vinegar. That's it, y'all. This is all you need. Once you, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this off because this is heated through. The consistency is the way I want it. Y'all, there's no comparison to store-bought versus your homemade. I'm just going to tell you. And you can, again, you can water bath can these. Tomato is one of those high acid foods that you can water bath can. You can these, but honestly, there's not a whole lot. 12 ounces isn't going to give you enough to pull out the canner. You can refrigerate these for quite some time in your refrigerator. I know I made 2 batches, but I can also use this base right here to go ahead and make my own barbecue sauce using my own ingredients. So we're going to come back and I will be with you in just a minute. So as you've seen, it is not that hard to make your own. Flavor comparison from store-bought to homemade, to me, there is no comparison. I by far absolutely love our own ketchup. My husband told me, he said, besides it having a better enhanced flavor to it, it's really no different than what you buy from the store. So, and honestly, I can guarantee you we didn't pay at half as much as what we're going to pay at the store for just having sucralose. And honestly, we don't need that much of a sugar in this ketchup. So if you can find the time, I encourage you to make your own. Later on, I am going to be making up another batch of Dijon mustard. I had requests for this as well. In time, I still have my farm chores to do, so as soon as I get caught up, I'm going to be doing a lot more after the holidays. It's a bit chaotic here at the homestead at times, but in my times where it's not so chaotic, I will be making more videos to share with you in the canning and the home preserving. I am working on one thanks to Victoria's Keto Kitchen. She has an all-purpose and a self-rising flour mix that I am going to test, and you can guarantee, Victoria, I'm going to test this. She claims that these recipes this flour can replace any recipe, from your grandma's recipe to any recipe out there, with her mix, such as anything that requires all-purpose flour, depending on what you are using in a cake, in a cookie, anything that requires all-purpose flour, omitting the baking powder and baking soda. You don't add that to your ingredients. You can actually cook anything that you can find in your recipe. In the bread section, same aspect. The only difference between the self-rising flour mix that she has is that it adds yeast. That's the only difference. So I'm going to be testing these out with my recipes, and I will share with you. My husband has a very bad sweet tooth, which has probably got him in this trouble in the first place. So I have to try to accommodate that. That won't hurt him. Yesterday I did make a chocolate chip cookie that blew my mind. It didn't taste low carb, it didn't taste keto, and if many of you are doing this journey, you know what I'm talking about. Some of the stuff just doesn't taste good, let alone what we have to pay. This is the most expensive journey I have ever seen. So if I can cut my costs to simplify food, I'm doing that. So I will be the one between me and my husband, we're taking one for the team. I'm taking the team's flavor balance, normality, as much as you possibly can. And he's taken the team for his blood sugar testing. So the more we learn, the more we see, the more I'll share. Barbecue, for what you use for your hot dogs, your hamburgers, I'm going to tell you any hamburger is pretty much safe, except honestly soy. Please stick to as natural as possible in your hamburger. Try to stay away from the soys and the preserved hamburgers. There is a difference. It will go to your blood sugar, I will guarantee you. I've already seen it happen. Again, with the hot dogs, there are 2 brands that my husband can eat that doesn't hurt him half as bad, if any. Hebrews National, and the other one, oh Lord help me Jesus, Nathan's. When it comes to a hot dog, I'm going to explain to you the preserving, the curing. Please watch the curing in your sausages, in your hot dogs, all of these things. The curings might not say it on your ingredient list, but they will say it in the ingredients. The nutrition label mostly won't. So please read those ingredients, because the curing agents will reveal the sugar. I've already seen it in his blood test, and I've had to turn to all naturals or more less cured. I am sometime in the future going to be learning how to make all natural hot dogs with a cure with no sugar. Should we succeed, you know I'm going to share with you. So until then, much love from Carrie, Parton's Heritage Homestead. Until we meet again, God bless.